Good morning. Well, I don't know if it's morning where you are, but it's certainly morning where I am. And as I'm recording this, it is 6:36 a.m. It's Wednesday, the 4th of October, and I'm heading into the studio for day 2 of tracking drums for an Australian band named the Bennies for their new album. So I thought I'd jump on here and have a bit of a chat about that and the process as to how I go about recording with this band in particular, and how I work with Ollie, the guy that is in the room with me today. He's the guitarist of the band. And then, just to give you guys a bit of an update on what's been going on. So I suppose the biggest news is that my wife and I, we welcomed our little boy Maximus to the world a couple of weeks ago. So he was born the 17th of September. So we're pushing 2 weeks and 4 days now. And he's going really well. He's a big boy, and a newborn comes with basically minimal sleep, which is what we're running on at the moment. More so Jess, obviously, because the demands for the mum are much higher. But the last couple of weeks have just been just us at home, just sort of finding that new groove, that new rhythm, and reminding ourselves of what it's like to have a newborn. So I've got a 19-year-old, my son Ashton, and then we also have our daughter Audrey. She's 11. So we haven't had a newborn in the house for 11 years, and it's kind of weird. Like, it's definitely much easier being a bit older and a little bit more settled down, but it's also still as challenging, like the lack of sleep thing. I mean, I'm pretty good on minimal sleep anyway, and I have been for some time, but the minimal sleep that I get is quality sleep. So minimal sleep that's not quality, it's just rough. It's fucking rough, man. But as I say, it's way rougher for the mum. The demand on the mum is so much higher with the feeding and whatnot, but he's feeding well, and he's a really cool little dude. He's a handsome chap, and we couldn't be more stoked that he's entered our lives, which is great. And then I took a couple of weeks off, doing anything musical, so going into the studio or obviously any gigs or anything, at the risk of Jess going into labour while I was doing a show. So I cut all that out for a few weeks, and then I've just been sort of working on my playing at home on a practice kit that I've got. I love doing pad work and I love doing practice kit work, so I was really looking forward to that time anyway, and headed back into the studio for the first time maybe 5 days ago, just to sort of dust the cobwebs off and get the kit organised, because I've got my 2 K-drums kits in there, and I've got some other kits as well, but I wanted to switch around the K-drums kits. I wanted to put my sort of more vintage kit in the studio, set up, mic'd up, dialed in for the recording of this album for the Bennies. So the Bennies are kind of like, I've known of the Bennies for years. So when I was back in Australia, I used to tour and play with a bunch of artists, and I would come across the Bennies on festivals that we were both on, and they've just been like, they've got a great reputation. They've been doing it for ages. They write great music. It's super fun. It's kind of like rock with elements of punk, a little bit of sort of sludge and sort of surf rocky thing going on. The lyrics are hilarious. Like, they're a really fun band. And so I've known of the Bennies for a long time, but they had a lineup change a little while back, and a friend of mine, a guy that I've known for over 20 years actually, he ended up their guitarist, and he also sort of produces them too, to a degree. His name's Ollie, and Ollie's actually based back here in New Zealand. And since I moved back to New Zealand, Ollie and I got together in my studio, and I actually demoed drums for some of his solo material. So this is, I think, before he had joined the Bennies, or around the time that he was thinking about it. And so Ollie and I have worked together in the studio. And then anyway, we've kept in touch because he lives local and he's a really good dude. And then he reached out to me maybe 2 months ago and said that they were going through another lineup change with their drummer, and was basically asking if I'd be interested in recording drums for their new album. And I was like, yeah, man, well, obviously it's around the time that Jess is due, so send me through the demos or the pre-production stuff now, and I'll have a listen. And if I feel like I can contribute to it in a positive way, like if I can add something to the session, then yeah, definitely. And like my policy with session work now, whether it's live or in the studio, and it's kind of been this way for some time, is I just don't really take on anything that I don't get some sort of fulfillment out of. So I'm not like, I do consider myself a session guy, but I'm just not doing just everything and anything that gets handed to me. So I've passed on a lot of gigs, I've passed on a lot of session work that, maybe it didn't work for me in terms of the style of music, or I felt like, yeah, I could do it, but maybe I'm not the best person to do it, or even that if I feel like it's not the right music and creatively I'm just going to be, my juices are going to get sucked out of me. Oh, fuck. Sucked out of. Oh, God. We'll move on from that. But yeah, if I feel like I'm not getting anything out of it creatively or experientially, so like I like to make sure that there's an experience in the situation for me, then I'll actually just pass it on. And that was the case in this case. Oh, sorry, that wasn't the case in this case, because when Ollie sent through the demos, I was straight into it. Like, it's like, I'm a rock guy. I say this, often, that I'm a rock guy that's taken interest in other styles, but I'm still just a rock guy. I say a rock guy with a little bit of color, and like when something like this comes my way, it sort of suits my wheelhouse quite a lot. So I said yes to Ollie. Let's do it. Let's get in the studio. And then my son Maximus was actually 2 weeks late. So it kept pushing back the dates of when I could go into the studio, because I said to Ollie that the first 2 weeks of him being here, I don't want to do anything. I want to stay at home and just be there as much as I can, and just basically not bail on Jess, just because we're trying to find that new rhythm. And he was like, yep, cool. And then he was like 12 days late, and so it pushed those 2 weeks back even further. But then he finally arrived, and then we locked in doing it now, so basically yesterday and today. And I listened to the tracks and then decided, so he gave me drum lists and he also gave me with the program drums, and I decided not to go too deep on them either way, because the way that Ollie and I worked last time is that we just listened to, so my process with him and this session in particular, and to be honest other sessions that I've done, is go into my room with the artist with the tracks, and then one by one I drag in the tracks into the session. We listen to the program drums version together, and then we listen to the no drums version, and I start jamming along, and I stop and we have a chat about each track as we go. And then I basically just start recording. And my process, like what I give the artist and what I've done in the past for a few guys now, is I basically start tracking until I get the take. So I write it as I go, and we confer as I go, and we decide on things that we like and dislike. And then I basically just cut the track, and I don't do any editing on the drums, because I mean, part of it is to do with the fact that I use Logic Pro X, and I wouldn't say that I'm a gun on it, but I'm not really into like layering tracks and then splicing and all of that. Like, I would rather give the artist 2 or 3 full takes of like, damn near perfect takes, and then they can then go through and listen to those takes and decide if maybe they liked the feel of the chorus in this take but the verse in this. They can make those decisions, but in my opinion I feel it's better to give them a full take that there is no drum editing at my end. It's just like all vibe, it's all there. Maybe I tried something and we caught it, so like we kept that take, and yeah, it seems to be like a really good working process. I mean, yesterday we got through 9 songs that I had heard for a first time, really, in detail for a first time, and we tracked them between we started tracking at about 8 a.m. and I'd say we finished tracking at sort of 2:30, 3, and that was with a lunch break of about an hour and whatnot. So 9 songs was actually pretty good, and most of them I didn't even do 2 takes, because we were so happy with the 1 take that I got. So that's my process. I really enjoy that process, because it's really it's all about communication, and I think it's a super effective way. And it also harkens back to the good old days where all the greats, they didn't have the luxury of editing on the fly and, doing cut-ins to a verse to redo it and things like that. They would just do takes, and that's always stood out to me as I never want to be not good enough to do that, because that was how things were done. I never want to rely on technology. So part of it's just, it's almost stubbornness, but probably a little bit of prioritizing what I see as important in terms of what I put my effort into learning. I just can't be bothered going too deep on Logic. Like, I know how to set up sessions and I know how to record. I know how to use my DAW, but I'm not into being an engineer and layering tracks and all that sort of shit. So yeah, that's my process. We listen to the track, we decide on what we like, and then I just start recording. And if I fuck something up, then I just stop, delete, start again, boom, and it works. Like, the process works really well, and I do not move on from that song until I get it, so that all that time and effort that we're putting into curating it is not gone to waste, And so I'm nearly at the studio now, and so yeah, that's what I'm up to today. We've got 5 more songs to track today from memory, and 2 of them are actually one song. There's like an A and a B thing going on. One of the tracks yesterday was a 19-second thrash interlude, which I'm going to play for you now at the end of this, because the boys said that I could do that. I could post it early, just because it's a fun vibe, and really just to sort of show the range. I used to do a lot of thrash stuff because I used to like jam along to Slipknot and play heavier stuff and metal outfits and whatnot. So, and I've got my Meshuggah medley and stuff. So it was kind of really cool to get back into that almost Pantera thrash style of playing for this one track. And it's a hilarious little tune, literally 19 seconds long. And so yeah, I'm gonna tag that on the end of this video just to give you guys an idea of what I'm doing. The drums, the mix of the drums in this little clip that I'm about to show you is just my candy mix. They're not mixed properly, and these are just the scratch guitars too. But like I say, it's just a little bit of fun to sort of bring you guys into the fold of what I'm up to. So I'm pulling into the studio now, and yeah, I might add a little bit more on this inside the studio, give you guys a rundown of what I'm up to, but otherwise talk in a second. All right, we're in the room. Ollie's about to turn up, but I thought I would jump back in to give you guys a little bit of a rundown of what we're doing here in the studio, the vibes in here. So let's have a look. I don't even know if I was in frame then, but all good. So I'm running I use all SE microphones, and I use Apogee hardware. Everything is just sounding so dialed in at the moment, and I'm super spoiled and very, very lucky with the gear that I've got. So I'll just give you a quick mic rundown. I'm using the Rupert Neve small diaphragm condensers for my hats and ride. I'm using the SE 4400 or the T2 for kick out. I'm using their V kick for kick in. I'm using the V beats for the toms. I'm using the S7 for snare top and S7X for snare bottom. I'm using 2 4400s for my overheads. These are stunning as overheads, these guys here. And then I've got 2 SE8s for rooms, and anything else that I've got in here? Nah, that's it for mics. Now the kit, obviously it's, my K-Drums Kauri. So Kauri is Kauri tree is a New Zealand native wood. Using that, it's got a sort of bombastic sort of vintage vibe, and so I lean into that with the black dots. And then I've got my VK Bell Bronze that I'm using, and then you might have seen on a recent post, but I'm using the Kevlar head, the Black Max, because this thing is fucking awesome, especially on a Bell Bronze snare. I wouldn't use it on anything less than a Bell Bronze or a super thick wooden snare, because it would just crush it. And yeah, that's the vibe. I'm not necessarily hitting everything that I've got on display here. This is just the way that I have the studio kit set up for options when I'm tracking and whatnot. I'm kind of limiting myself to mainly like a 4-piece, crash, ride. I'm not really using the splashes and the stacks and stuff. And yeah, she's sounding and looking fucking awesome. So what I'm going to play now is the 19-second thrash track. So enjoy.
I know.